And my daughter at the time, she was a year old. And I came to the realization on a Tony event that my life is more than this. And I couldn't imagine looking my daughter in the eye as an adult and saying that dad never went and never pursued his true passion and true purpose in life. Instead, he settled for plan B and stayed in medical sales.
Welcome to the DreamDivers podcast. This is the coaching show that is designed to help people just like you, people who know in their hearts that they were made to do something bigger, more purposeful, and legendary with their lives to impact the world. My name is Ira Davis, the Chief Dream Diver, and I am your dream development coach. What's up, Dream Divers? Today on the podcast, we have my new friend, Frank. Frank Fiume is the founder of the purpose-driven business I9 Sports, a youth sports league that runs camps and clinics with a focus on fun and safety, whose aim is to help kids succeed in life through youth sports. Since 2003, I9 has generated over $300 million and has helped over 2 million kids in over 900 communities across the country. Frank and his company have been recognized by Entrepreneur Magazine as the #1 children's fitness franchise in the country, and he has been featured on places such as Fox Business News, HBO Real Sports, USA Today, Sports Illustrated, and the Wall Street Journal. Frank just released a new book called Running with My Head Down, an entrepreneur's story of passion, perseverance, and purpose. Frank, welcome to the show, brother. How are you?
Awesome, Ira. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, quick story for all you dream divers out there listening. So, I'm off filming a documentary in Oregon a couple of weeks ago, and I'm headed back to California, and I'm going through the airport. And I have some time. I stop in the bookstore because all of you out there know I love reading. I'm reading like 3 or 4 books at a time at any given point. And so I'm in the bookstore. It's like Candyland for me, like Toys R Us. And I'm going round and round looking for books. And I see all these beautiful covers and titles because I'm working on my own book. And I'm looking and I find like 3 or 4 that I'm like stuck between. Like, you know, books are like $20, $30 in between there. I'm like, I can't buy all of them. So I'm like, I got to buy one. And so it's like between 2 books. And I'm just walking circles. And then I read Frank's subtitle of Running with My Head Down, an entrepreneur story of passion, passion, perseverance, and purpose. And I said, this is the one. And I pick up the book and I start reading it. And about halfway through, I said, okay, Frank needs to be on the podcast. And so Frank is on the podcast. Frank is on the podcast, man. So thank you for writing this book, Frank. Listen, I don't know how hard this was, but your heart and soul was in this book, and we're going to get to it. I just want to tell you thank you for putting that book in the bookstore for a guy like me, man. So talk to us about I9 Sports, the purpose behind it, how it came, not how it came about yet, but the purpose behind it, and some of the great things that you guys have done over the last couple of years.
Yeah, sure. So the purpose of I9 Sports was we wanted to really revolutionize the way youth sports is in the country. You know, we have so many issues that we always hear about with sports for kids, right? It's cutthroat business, cutthroat leagues, and it's a win-it-all attitude. And, the media portrays all the craziness that goes on. But that's not the whole thing, right? That's not all of youth sports. And I was absolutely committed when I started youth sports that I knew that we had something that I wanted to be different. And I knew different meant it was going to be about fun first for the kids. That's why we played sports as kids, right? I mean, we wanted to win, of course. The issue with youth sports in throughout America and possibly worldwide is that parents are the ones that get in the way. Like, we're the problem as the parents. The kids, they just want to have fun. They want to win. They want to have a great time. They want to be with their friends. So I wanted to create a league that was fun first, that was going to be absolute safe for the parents to feel confident in their having their kids in our program. And thirdly, wanted to make sure it was convenient, because especially now in this generation where our schedules are so crazy, I wanted to make sure that our program was built in a very convenient way. So actually our practices and games are on the same day, which is great because kids, especially the little guys and little girls, they get to practice a skill or a lesson and then implement it right away, which is really the way little kids learn. So it's been an incredible experience, and helping kids succeed in life through sports is our mantra.
Man, and so what are some of the things that you guys have been able to accomplish in, the amount of time that you've been in existence? We talked about how many kids you've helped, and are there any specific stories about how I-9 has really infiltrated the community and become a staple of impact and inspiration and hope to families?
Oh my gosh, there are so many stories that I have had over the years that it hits you between the eyes. You see, what happens a lot of times is when we're in a business, we get caught up in the four walls and ceiling that we're in. But when you get out in the field or you hear from customers, you hear from people who have their kids in the league and hear how we changed their lives. I'll tell you one really quick story because this is one of the probably two biggest stories that really affected me. There was on the 6 o'clock news one night in South Florida, there was a family whose home was on fire. The home was like burning down. The mom was on camera and her son was next to her on camera. Her son had an I-9 Sports jersey on. And the lady, as you could probably imagine, was absolutely bawling her eyes out. Well, one of our franchisees saw the lady, and he knew that the a neighboring franchise had, obviously this lady was her customer. So he called the franchisee and said, "Hey, one of your customers, her home is on fire. I know this because the little boy has his I-9 Sports jersey on." So sure enough, a few hours later, this franchisee called the lady up, found out who it was, called her up, and he said to her, "I'm so sorry to hear about what happened to your home." And she's like, "Thanks for calling." She's like, I don't know what we're going to do. This is obviously so fresh. Like everything has happened. We've lost everything. And she said that my son lost everything too. And the one thing that he wanted more than anything else was his medal, his sportsmanship medal that got burned up in the fire. When I heard this story, it absolutely killed me because I'm telling you the story still with the same amount of emotion that I had when this happened in 2009, because it made me realize that we have an impact on people's lives far more than I ever thought. I mean, look, I started my business because I love sports. I didn't know it was going to be changing people's lives, or that a medal that costs us a couple dollars was going to be the most valued prized possession of this kid, because this medal represented something more than, not wasn't a participation medal. It was a medal that represented this kid who was the best team player on his team that week, and that's why he best exemplified that value and got that medal. And that was the one thing he wanted out of his whole home, was a medal from my company that he got. Dude, that impacted me for a very, very long time. And I tell people that as a way of not to impress them, but to impress upon them that you can make a difference in people's lives far greater than you're imagining when you're starting a business.
Man, that's something that we don't really think about the full weight of the things that we do in our business and how they have an impact on everybody who comes connected with it. And so a lot of times, when I teach people about products and services and their purpose driven business, you have to go into these things with so much intention,
Yes.
even down to the naming convention of what you call things, have a long lasting impact far beyond what you could ever think or imagine. Like that metal went from an idea to fruition to this young man's home, but deeper than that, it went to this young man's spirit, right? And I don't think anybody, maybe you didn't think about that when you were doing it, maybe you did, but
No, I didn't. I'm honest. The reason why we even came up with the sportsmanship medals and values was I was sick and tired of hearing about these sports leagues that say they're about good sportsmanship, yet what were the only thing that they reward? Winning. How do you say you're for good sportsmanship, yet the only thing you do is reward kids for winning? That didn't make any sense to me. So when I started Online Sports, we came up with a way of having every week was a different sportsmanship value, like humility, teamwork, leadership. Depending on the age of the child, we have age appropriate values, and then the kid that best exemplifies that value gets the medal. I never envisioned in a million years that this medal was going to be taken to somebody's spirit like that. That's why it absolutely just, it didn't crush me, but at the time, I was so choked up. I went home that night and told my wife and kids at dinner. I started telling the story, and I absolutely broke down crying. My kids had never seen me cry before. I was just so caught up because it was out of gratitude. It was just like, oh my gosh, I've created something so much bigger than me. so much bigger than me, bigger than my vision. And it made me want to do more. And the more you give, the more you get. It's just incredible. We hear that all the time, but I did it. I'm a regular guy and I did it. I'm telling you, anybody can do it.
Wow. And speaking of that, anybody can do it. Frank, I read your book, Running with My Head Down, and I felt like I was running with my head down alongside of you. That's how that's
Sorry.
no, no. Listen, that's how thorough this book was, and the story, and how you brought us into where you were. Take us back to Frank in New York City, man, and talk to us about how this love of sports transitioned into what you're doing now, man.
Yeah, so yeah, my parents got divorced when I was in like second grade, and it hit me hard. I didn't realize at the time, but I love baseball, and I think maybe I used baseball as an outlet. And I was a crazy baseball fanatic as a kid. I mean, most of us, we play little league, we watch it on TV, but I mean, I was listening to it on the radio, watching it on TV, playing it, creating leagues for my kid, for friends in my neighborhood. In the wintertime, I found these baseball board games and actually organized leagues for board games. So it was just like everything. I was breathing, eating, drinking, sleeping baseball. And I wasn't the best student in the world. I was an okay student. But by the time my parents, after they split, my mom, my sister and I moved to back into the city after being in Long Island when my parents were married. It was a real rough time for us. We lived in a apartment that was run down to say the least. Bug infested, and that's something we weren't proud of at the time. Yet that time period, it absolutely made me who I am today, to absolutely appreciate things and realizing that it doesn't matter if I have these four walls and a ceiling or that apartment. It's the love that you have and the people that you're around that count, and your drive of what you're going to create something in your life. That's what matters. It doesn't matter who you were, what you came from, the amount of money you have or didn't have, the contacts. All of that is nonsense. But I took this love of baseball, and I ended up starting an adult men's softball league to fast forward a little bit as I became adult. And I did this on the weekends because I thought it would be a cool thing to do. I didn't know it was my purpose. It was just because I was in medical sales at the time and I hated it. I had no passion for it at all. And I was playing softball with college buddies on the weekends. And I thought, I don't think this is a business. I mean, softball leagues, you see these bar leagues, recreational leagues. And we played in these recreational leagues. And then I thought, I don't know, maybe I can start a league. And then before you know it, I was having people tell me it would never work. Oh, you'll never get fields. You'll never get umpires. You'll never get teams. And the more I heard no, the more driven I was getting. And then I started looking into it and going, wait a minute, these guys have been running leagues like 20, 30 years. This is a business. These guys are making money. I knew how much money we were paying. I started finding out how much it was costing them. And I realized nobody's treating this like a business. I can do this. And the first season I ran my league, my wife and I made like $7,000. Yet we were so happy and fulfilled. At the end of our first season, I'll never forget, we had this awards party. And these are 20, 30, 40 something year olds that played in our leagues. And we had this big awards banquet. And they started chanting our company name, ABA. ABA was the ABA softball league. It's for amateur ball players association is what ABA stood for. And they started chanting ABA, ABA at the end of the night. And I remember it was that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I just discovered my purpose that I've been looking for. Like, I'm built for this. This is why I'm here. I'm here to give to others. I'm here to give them something and to create this league. And that's how it all started.
Man, it's funny, when we start to break down and reverse engineer our lives and we look backwards, we begin to see the seed of who we were always supposed to become as we break down our life. And so when we look at your story, we see the man that you are today was beginning to become that guy in your backyard when you had the wiffle ball leagues and the baseball card leagues, right? A lot of times people are looking for the talents and the skill sets and the capabilities and how they're going to turn that into something great. But it really, all of the that you need the ingredients are right there in your history, in your story. They're right there. And it was those things that you actually built a foundation on that allowed you to discover what you were born to do, to use those things to combine that with an impactful business model that allowed you to implement to where you would eventually get to. So I think that's really powerful for you to be able to pinpoint where where that secret sauce actually started from. And so now, so we got ABA. ABA is doing this thing. And are you still in medical sales at the time? What kind of happens after that first year?
Was in medical sales at the time. It was the only thing that my dad supported and rooted for me was medical sales because he was in the medical field. He used to work at a hospital, and he was the guy that ran like the heart lung machine for open heart surgery. Super successful, well known, in the business in the hospital, and in his craft. But it just I'm an entrepreneur. I had the entrepreneurial spirit. That was not his flavor. So we would butt heads when I would tell him, Dad, I'm going to quit my medical sales job. I want to run ABA full time. And he would tell me all the time, he'd say, Frank, you got golden handcuffs. You make way too much money. You could never leave this career. And I had no passion for it. I'd show up to the hospitals in New York City. Don't get me wrong, Ira. I'm calling on like these world-renowned multimillionaire surgeons in New York City, NYU Medical Center, New York Hospital, Cornell, Mount Sinai. I mean, we're talking like an cream of the crop here of medical facilities in cutting edge open heart surgery technology. And I'm a 20-something-year-old doing this. So I was grateful that I was doing it, but I still had no passion for it. Yet this little softball league was where I was getting all this juice and energy from. And I was driven once I got a little bit of, I guess, positive feedback from these teams, it made me want it more. So I would go out and I'd start going to the schools and parks and I'd start getting more fields. I just chipped away, never gave up. I was given nothing. I didn't get like all of a sudden, like all these ball fields given to me. It didn't happen like that. I wish it did. But no, I had to chip away and I got the worst quality fields because that was the only thing that was available. I got whatever umpires I could get, but I kept giving teams, I provided more value than any other league. I had the best customer service. I answered the dang phone. I gave them the newsletter. I made sure the schedule was done on time. I gave the best awards. They got me. They got attention from me. They weren't getting it from the other leagues that were out there. That was part of the secret sauce, was they were getting my passion and energy. So, but yeah, that was a rough time being in medical sales at the same time. And then I went to a Tony Robbins event, UPW, Unleash the Power Within, in 1999. And my daughter at the time, she was a year old. And I came to the realization when I was at the Tony event that my life is more than this. And I couldn't imagine looking my daughter in the eye as an adult and saying that dad never went and never pursued his true passion and true purpose in life. Instead, he settled for plan B and stayed in medical sales. I couldn't envision doing that. And it would happen at that UPW, at that Tony Robbins event, where we go through this process called the Dickens process, actually. It's taken from the Christmas Carol movie with Scrooge and seeing Ghosts of Christmas past and present and future. And when went through that process, I'm telling you, it was like, that was the time. It was time to dive in. I was doing this full time. I quit my medical sales job and never looked back.
Wow, man, listen. So let's unpack that, right? Right.
Okay.
There are a lot of people on the line today who are making 6, 7, 8 figures, and they have those golden handcuffs. But they also have people in their life who say, "You can't leave that. You're making too much money. You can't leave that. That doesn't make any sense. You can't." They have people in your life like, we would associate, like, kind of talking to you like your dad kind of talked to you, right? What do you say to those people who have the golden handcuffs? What do you say to those people who have people in their lives who say, "Hey, this family, we do medical sales. In this family, we go to law school. In this family, what do you say to those people who know that they were put here to do something legendary, to impact the world, but are handcuffed by what somebody else is saying to them, by the amount of money that they're already making?" What is your advice for those? individuals?
Great. That's a great question. Let me take this in two parts. The first part is about the people that are the doubters and naysayers. I didn't know this at the time, but here's what I've learned. The only reason why they're telling you these things is because actually they love you and they don't want you to fail. I know that's hard to believe because I had some really difficult conversations with my dad who didn't want me to leave medical sales. The fact is, though, he didn't want me to fail. He loved me. Our friends and family that tell us, don't do this, don't do that. They're trying to look out for us. Not that they don't want us to be successful. It's hard to take that advice at the time. Here's the other thing about people that give us advice that sometimes is not in alignment for what we think our purpose and our passion is that oftentimes people will give you advice only based on upon whether they can see it for themselves. In other words, my dad is not an entrepreneur, right? His goal was to work his medical physician. He's a clinician and do that for 30 years and get to retirement and get the pension and live happily ever after. So for me to come in as this 20-something-year-old that has all this entrepreneurial fire and want to follow my passion, pursue my purpose, that's kind of hearsay to dad. So he couldn't envision that for himself. That's okay. So that's the first part, is to have peace with that.
Yeah, let me dive in on that real quick because this is something
Yeah.
that I talk about a lot. There are two types of people in the world, right? Those who see reality and those who see possibility, right? And not everybody will see the possibility. There's some people who are just stuck in
Right.
in what they can see, right? And that's okay. And it's not a bad thing, but there are two types of people. You have to understand if you are one of those people who see possibility, if you're taking your dream around people who can only see reality, you're going to get a lens from reality people. And right, and if you want to fuel yourself to get to that next level, right, Frank, you got to be around people who see possibility just like you. That's why you're talking about when you went to Tony Robbins' event, you were in an arena of those who see possibility. So it changes. It
Right.
changes the lifeline and the blood flow to your dream when you're around people who see possibility, right?
You have to surround yourself with people that are of the same mindset at times. Certainly, especially when you're getting out of that comfort zone, because we all know this, the only way we grow is to get out of the comfort zone, is to the amount of discomfort we can handle is the amount we're going to grow. So for me, it was going to a Tony Robbins event and being able to be around the mindset of people. Um, you know, the other thing that you were asking about was about if you're making too much money. You mind if I hop on over to that?
Man, come on, please.
Okay, so here's the deal. Here's what I believe since I kind of went through it. Guys, you got one life, right? You got one shot at this. I think that we were actually put on this earth not to settle for plan B. And what I mean by plan B is the backup where it's safe, where you're making the money. I think God put us here to actually pursue our dreams and to give to others. And that means getting out of our own way, getting uncomfortable and pursuing, because anything worth doing is going to be uncomfortable. But my mantra that my wife and I have lived by for over 25 years now, since we've known each other, is to live our life with absolutely no regrets. You don't want to look back on your life and say, would have, could have, should have. You have to go for it. And here's the other thing, too. If you're one of those people that you're making a lot of money and you're like, I can't leave, or I'm in this career, I believe, since I have experiences with you guys, is that it is only one mission in your life. I think our life is made up of a series of missions. Even when I started ABA Sports and that softball league, and I thought this was like the greatest thing in the world. Look, as great as it was really only one mission in my life, just like medical sales was a mission. And we have a series of missions. You go from one mission to the next. And the next thing for me was I-9 Sports. I-9 Sports could have never come unless I actually did medical sales and did ABA Sports. You take all that history with you. So take what you've learned in that career that you're making so much money, and or that you've taken that experience that you've learned, and take that to what you're supposed to do. Follow your passion.
Woo. Frank, I love it, man. Um, you, I thought I was listening to myself talk for a minute, man. That was awesome, brother. That phenomenal. So boom, ABA is up and it's doing phenomenal. Um, and now you're in this transition period of full time. Do I leave medical sports? So how do we get from leaving full time a thriving ABA, and then take us all the way up into, you kind of get to the I-9 era.
Yeah, so okay, here's the deal. Now I'm all right. I'm committing myself to leaving medical sales after I leave Tony Robbins' event, and I'm going to run ABA full time. And ABA is not making enough money for my wife and I to live on. And I was committed. I said, talk about diving in. I dove in head first, and it was there's no safety net, and that's the only way I knew I had to live, because with that safety net, that's what was holding me back, keeping that career. So when I went into ABA and were able to do it full time, we actually doubled our revenue. I made more money that first year running ABA than I had ever done in medical sales. It just goes to show you I should have never been holding myself back that whole time. Once I was free and I did it full time, ABA doubled, and then it doubled again, and then it doubled again. And then I learned around that same time, my wife and I were living in Tampa. We relocated to the Tampa Bay area. We had learned that the NFL was going to be offering youth flag football leagues for kids throughout the communities as like an outreach program to educate people on football. Now, I don't have any experience running kids leagues, period. I knew how to run adult men's softball, but in fact, by that time, we were the largest softball league in the state of New York. We had almost 1,000 teams. Again, here's a guy who had no money, no contacts, but I did it through sheer will and perseverance. And I'm like, I know how to run leagues. So when the NFL was offering these programs, I wanted to start the league. And real quick, I got 100 kids the first season. And everyone told me it was never going to work because in Florida, people play real football, tackle football. And that was nonsense. And the next season, I said, I'm going to run flag football again for kids. And the same people that told me it wasn't going to work said I was insane. It's never going to work. And they said, you know why it's never going to work? Because you're going to run flag football in the spring. Don't you know everybody plays baseball in the spring, you idiot? Got 600 kids that season. And then I knew we had the franchise, and that's how I took the leap to, okay, hold on a second. Nadine and I have leagues in New York, Florida. I have adult youth sports. We're onto something. Like, God is speaking to me. My purpose is coming through loud and clear. Like, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to make something bigger. And the one more thing I've got to share, because we're on the right here at the edge here. I felt entitled, but I mean that in a way that we don't use that. I know we use that term differently nowadays. I felt entitled, like I was put here to do this. I'm going to work so hard, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm supposed to do this. I'm entitled to success because I'm going to outwork anybody and everybody. And that's where I used entitled in a very positive way. And that's what led me to, I have to expand this. And I chose franchising. And that's how I built I9 Sports, was through that franchising model.
Wow. Yeah. So let's break down the entitled piece, right? Um, I am entitled does have a negative connotation, but when you flip it and understand that when God gives you a dream, He is literally saying, son or daughter, this is your contribution to humanity. This is
Yes.
yours. You must, you shall. This is your thing. Go execute. I'm not giving it to anybody else the way that I'm going to give it to you. It is yours. And so when God tattoos that on your heart, you must be entitled, because if you don't have that attitude, you're going to let life and reality and opposition come and choke your dream out, come and choke your purpose out. And so you have to have that chip on your shoulder that says, if I don't do it before I die, I will be doing humanity a disservice, because this is the only reason why God gave me life.
I
Right?
absolutely felt that way, Ira. I felt that with every fiber of my body. And what was so strange is that I had never known anybody that had that experience before. It was foreign to me. Nobody ever shared with me that they pursued their purpose, that God had told them that they need to do this, and they actually did it. Like it was something that was very unique, because my circle, my sphere of people I've been around were hardworking, worked either blue collar jobs or had a business, worked in a business, but were not entrepreneurial or didn't do something so outlandish as to like reinvent an industry. That's not that was not my sphere of influence. So to hear God's calling to that I have to do this, uh, and feel entitled, like I'm here to do this. I'm supposed to do this. It was incredibly empowering and a little frightening at the same time, because you're being asked to do something that is so much bigger than you, and you've never done anything like this in your life.
Yeah, and that's everybody on the call, Frank. Everybody on the podcast listening or watching. That is what they feel. That's what the calling of a dream diver is. Is God is saying you have a pioneer's anointing on your life, and I'm sending you to a place where there's no blueprint. There's no secret to success, right? It's just you, the jungle, and a machete, and I need you to create something. It's like the Wild Wild West, right? Like, okay, which way do we go from here, right?
And he's
Um,
like, "You figure it out." He goes, "Don't worry, you'll figure it out."
right.
Seriously, you giving me a machete, and that's about it. And you're dropping me in here with no food, no water. Yet God has confidence, all the confidence that we will figure it out because we have a strong enough why. Don't get caught up our heads on how we're going to do it. It's all about the why. Have a strong enough why.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that part of God dropping you into the wilderness with the machete and telling you to create something. When it was time for you to move to Florida, talk to us about that whole ordeal about family and friends and going into new territory and what that time was like for you.
Yeah, so okay, so at the time I'm in New York and I'm working in medical sales, and we did have ABA going. ABA was around for, it was in its second year. My wife and I felt like there's something bigger here, like bigger for us somewhere else. And we started looking around in Florida. We were so drawn to the Tampa Bay area. We had been there and visited. We felt like we needed a fresh start on life. We needed a new chapter. We felt so drawn to the Tampa Bay market. Um, and I had this epiphany one night in New York, because it was always about the pain of, how am I going to do this? How am I going to quit the job that I have in medical sales? How am I going to sell the house? We're not going to have really any money once we relocated. Didn't have much money in savings because the cost of living in New York was, so outrageous. So I was watching a Yankee game one night on TV, and I was doing the standings. I was doing the standings for the newsletter for my softball teams, and I was thinking, my problem is that I've been making it so painful for me to move to Florida, like to change our life dramatically and radically. Yet if I flip it the other way, where I make it more painful not to move, like, in other words, if I don't move, what was my life going to look like 5 years from now? What is it going to be, miserable in medical sales? Was I going to be paying all that money, and any money I made paying out to, in taxes, property taxes, and working for the mortgage, and just living, just to work to live? And if I didn't do that, what was going to happen after I had kids? And how was I going to feel 10 years into the future? And then 20 years into the future if I don't do this? And I started getting so riled up and fired up. And I learned this from Tony Robbins. This is not, my creation. This is Tony's, the Dickens process. And I fired myself up so much, because when I started looking into my future and thinking, I'm going to have regret of my whole life, and even more so, uh, who am I to my kids that I didn't go for my dream, that I didn't pursue my purpose in life? It fired me up so much. I sat down with Nadine and I'm like, honey, we got to do this. It's either now, or once we have kids, we're going to procrastinate. We're going to come up with all the reasons not to do it. And that's that was when that was it. That was when all the lights went on in both of our heads. And my wife has been supportive of everything I've ever wanted to do. And that's what made the move. We like, that's it. We're doing it. And we told our friends and family, this is not a should. This is a must. We have a hard deadline, hard date, house on the market, quitting the job, and we're doing it. We don't know how, but we're doing it.
Man, listen, that is the hardest part of the process is drawing the line in the sand of the point of no return. The point of no return is the hardest thing for us to do, to move out of that comfort zone. But when you do it, it's like everything begins to activate the momentum. Like the world begins to understand, here goes a guy or a woman who is entitled to what they were put here to do. and they have drawn the line in the sand and they're not going back. And it's like things begin to just move in your favor. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it means things begin to come into alignment. And then you start seeing these confirmations down the line of, yep, we made the right decision. Yep, we made the right decision. Doesn't mean a whole bunch of money's coming in yet, but yep, there's this confirmation. And so I wanted to go back to that point in your story because there's a lot of people who are facing that decision right now as they're listening, as they're watching. They have mouths to feed. They have people counting on them. But here's this dream that if they don't execute now, if they don't give everything to it now, right, it's going to either put them 20 years behind the power curve or they're going to suppress it for the rest of their life and they're going to miss the boat. So I appreciate you going back to that. Now, Frank, you have taken I9 Sports, created the number one children's leagues for sports in the country. You've made multi-millions of dollars. You franchised this model. You have what, over 200 or some odd franchisees?
We have over 150 franchisees that are operating in almost 1,000 locations in 30 states.
You've taken your purpose and you've created an amazing vehicle to impact and to inspire not only the kids' lives, but the families' lives. And now you've exited the business and you're on to bigger and better things. And I want to read this quote that you actually put in the book. It says, "Your purpose never stands still. It's a living thing that is always evolving. I can see now that I9 Sports was nothing more than the vehicle that I've been using to do inspirational work for myself and others. The vehicle could change, though my purpose would remain the same." Break that down for us as we wrap, the podcast today. What does that statement mean?
So for those that are entrepreneurs right now that are saying, I don't know, this is my purpose in life, I got to tell you that I thought, just like I thought ABA, I9 Sports, I thought was my purpose. I came to this realization where I was feeling stuck. Like my vision for the business was complete. I had this impact on people. I loved the business, yet I was feeling unfulfilled. Look, I was very fortunate that I built a strong team around me, and nobody's ever going to get to the top of the mountain by themselves. So I had a very, very strong team that I built around me. I was no longer needed in the business the way I used to be, and I was feeling really unfulfilled. And I had this kind of epiphany that, wait a minute, life wasn't about ABA or even I9 Sports. I was listening to God because he told me what my purpose ultimately was. It was about using my creativity and my enthusiasm to inspire others. So I9 Sports was just a vehicle for me to do that. And then when I came to the realization of this, I need to move on from I9, it was so freeing. It was like a release of guilt that I had because I thought it was like my ultimate. It was like, that's what I'll always be known for. And that's the only thing I was put here to do, is what I thought all along. And then I started realizing, wait a minute, my real purpose is to take all of this experience and share it with others. And how can I inspire people that, whether they're an aspiring entrepreneur to pursue their passion and discover their purpose, or an entrepreneur that's on this podcast right now that's going, I'm feeling stuck, like I'm making money, I'm not fulfilled anymore. Can I possibly leave it? I'm feeling guilty. Yes, you can. You can love that business in a new way. I'm a minority shareholder and on the board of directors. I'll always love I9 Sports. It's part of my DNA. I get to love it now as like a grandpa, right? I get to see the kids. I get to spend time with them. I get to give them back to mom and dad without any of the problems, right? It'll always be part of who I am. It's my baby. But when you really, really, really love what you do, you give that business whatever it needs. And sometimes that means getting out of your own way. And that's what inspired me to write the book. I'm like, I've got to do this. I've got to write a book to help others and speak to grad students that are in business and speak to entrepreneurs about pursuing their passion and discovering their purpose. And that's my next mission in my life.
Yo, I love it. And so literally what you're saying is what you create is not the purpose, it's the vehicle, right? And we talk about that all the time, right? And vehicles can change. Like for me, right? I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I'm about to be an author, but I also run a production company. But there's going to come times where God will literally shift the fruit that comes out of the tree, right? And it doesn't mean that he's shifting your roots. It means that the fruit changes from apples to oranges, from oranges to peaches, right? But the same flavor, the same result of eating that fruit still comes through. It just, now it's a book, right? Now it's a podcast, right? And so I believe for all of you listening on the line is that your dreams will never lie dormant. they just morph into other forms and formats that can serve the world. And so, but once you figure out what your purpose is, and I said this to somebody else, I was being interviewed on a mastermind call. I was like, once you figure out what your purpose is, I said, you can create an empire, an ecosystem that you never have to go outside of your purpose to ever run another purpose-driven business ever again, because there's so many different forms that purpose can live in that you don't need to do this or that. Everything can just come right from your purpose, right? I mean, you could take running with my head down and turn it into an event if you wanted to. You could take it right. There's so much life that your purpose can give forth that you never have to go outside of your purpose, man, to produce results and value for the world, man. So listen, Frank, tell us, where can we get the book? How can we support you and get connected?
Well, thank you. Well, my book is, again, it's Running with My Head Down. I have a copy of it right here. So it's Running with My Head Down, an entrepreneur story of passion, perseverance, and purpose. It's available on Amazon. Right now it's in all airport bookstores nationwide through the end of this year. I know that for sure, at least. And you can, like I said, get on Amazon. You could also, if you want to reach out to me, I'm available. I'm on social media channels, Frank Fiume. That's Fiume. because I'm Frank Fiume II. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also my website is frankfiume.com. And I'd love to interact with people. And I just hope I hope I could help inspire others to either pursue their passion, discover their purpose in a whole new way. That's why I'm here. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Frank. Listen, guys, those of you that are listening, I will put all of his links down in the show notes. Whether you're watching the video, or you're listening on the podcast, so it's easy for you to connect. Go out and support and buy the book and book Frank to speak. If you have that access as well, I know he would love to be a speaker on whatever platform you have for him to inspire others to pursue their purpose. Frank, listen, I want to speak life to you real quick, man. What you have done, what you have created with this book is giving a guy like me and those who are listening just a couple of more blueprints to that wild, wild west that we didn't have before. And so I appreciate you for taking the time to pin down a roadmap for all of us who are diving for a dream that's bigger than ourselves. But I know that in this next chapter of your life, God is going to open up some doors that will allow you to take every hard time, every good time, every tear, every laugh. He's going to take this next chapter of your life and give you a platform where you can pour all of that investment into people who will be sitting on the edge of their seat, soaking up all of this information, and will forever be grateful for your leadership and your mentorship. And so just know, man, in this next chapter of your life, that God is going to move you further, faster in this era than he did in the previous eras, because you're giving transparently the good and the bad of the journey to other people, man, who want to kind of flow in the vein that you flowed in, man. So I'm just praying for much more success and that your book will hopefully land you on Oprah's couch one day.
I would love it.
So,
wow, Aaron, thank you so much. That's incredible. It means the world to me. I knew when I wrote the book that I had to be raw and authentic. And trust me, when I was writing it, there was some things in there that I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to write this. It was me at my core. And fortunately, I had someone that helped guided me also through that book writing process that made me realize that if I really want to help people, I need to be my authentic, true self and give everything and be, not hold anything back. And I just did that. And I got into literally into character. Like I went back in time and felt, saw, smelled, heard everything, heard everything that I went through. And that's how the book really has that feeling. I was in character writing it, and I went through the pain. I re-experienced the pain and the exhilaration every step of every chapter of that book as I wrote it.
Man, well, listen, we're going to have you back on, man, just for some more wisdom and guidance and leadership as we go on this process of creating DreamDivers International and in my studio and things that we got going on because of your insight and your wisdom, man. But thank you so much for being here on the podcast, brother.
Ira, thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching this podcast. I hope it inspired you. Now, I need a huge favor. I need you, no matter what platform you're on, I need you to find that subscribe button, that like button. Leave us a great rating and a positive review. All of your comments, all of your reviews help us continue to make great content just for you.